and I am one of the co-founders of Bloom. Along with my co-host and another co-founder of Bloom, 𝗕𝗵𝗱𝗏, Abhijit Sansgiri, and our CEO, 𝗙𝗵 Irani, I welcome you all to the 206th non-stop Sunday Bloom Talk Show. Online or offline, rain or shine, we have been here 12:30 afternoon every Sunday speaking with someone who can help change lives. We've had speakers, trainers, coaches, athletes, doctors, nurses, couples. We have people from all the continents of the world joining in as speakers and guests. Taking that forward, today we have a special guest with us, 𝗙𝗪𝗏 Kaur. Let me introduce her a little bit and then I will ask Premraj to take it ahead. So, 𝗙𝗪𝗏 is providing insight-driven consulting solutions for efficiency and customer experience improvement and executive education to service leaders. ये थोड़ा मेरे भी सर के ऊपर जा रहा है. It goes a little bit above my head when I am reading this. So I'm sure in the next 1 hour when we are speaking with her, we will come to know what she does and how all this jumbled English words which I read out is possible. Over to you, Premraj.
Thank you, Deepak. From the jumbled word, let me make it a bit more simpler. 𝗙𝗪𝗏 Kaur, with over 3 decades of experience, has played a pivotal role in guiding a prominent organization to serve millions with unwavering dedication. Her core belief centers on the vital link between operational finesse and service excellence in embracing customer experiences. Her insights stems from her experience, including managing a technology-driven contact center with 2,500 service professionals, handling, hold your breaths, 1 lakh daily contacts across multiple geographies in just 4 years. Drawing from 30 plus years hands-on experience, crafting comprehensive tools and methods for launching, scaling, and optimizing service setups are her strengths. Achieving an elegant balance between customer-centric and financial prudence, brand reputation, and operational efficiency, her strategies are battle-tested for today's dynamic, tech-driven landscape. So let's know more about this powerful personality in 𝗙𝗪𝗏 Kaur. 𝗙𝗪𝗏, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the, elaborate introduction. And good afternoon to everybody. And as Deepak said, whichever part of the world you are, I greet you in that time zone. So I'm 𝗙𝗪𝗏 Kaur, and just to give an idea and, just to take this forward, I will explain, I'll try to just tell you what I have done. So that will give a context to, the description. So I started I'll divide it into 5 parts. So I started my career with Punjab National Bank, which was, public sector bank. And we had 1 year training, which is very rare these days. You don't even hear about it. So it was a 52-week training, which used to be on the job and classroom. So my basic, foundation of banking is what I got from there. So at that point of time, a person was supposed to know legal, compliance, risk, customer service, banking, lending, everything. So that was, one very comprehensive, learning that I had. So then I joined ICICI Bank to set up the bank. Now that's what my appointment letter says. And I was a 7th employee of the bank. So the bank, as we see today, was, set up at that point of time in '94. Now that my career in ICICI Bank spanned about 21 years, and it was divided into very distinct areas that I worked in. The first 4 or 5 years was about setting up the branch, setting up the banking structure. We were at Nariman Point, and we basically were, other branches used to get set up, we used to train people, send them there. And, it's about people coming from different places, and that's the setup portion of the bank. The second leg was when I set up the contact center. So and I just like to mention here that, I was going to set up the contact center without even having a credit card. I really had no idea about what it is. And the best part about setting up in that era, and when I say era, it's in the 90s, that was the best time, the 90s and the early 2000s, where you actually learned and did it. There was nothing to, copy paste. You could not just take it from somewhere, paste it and do it. You were just learning along the way. It was like, in that manner. And ICICI, the way it was growing exponentially. And that's why that importance of 4 years, because in 4 years, if you're moving from 0 to 2,500 employees, you're just running on the treadmill very fast. So that was one leg of the setting up the contact center. The second leg, the second piece of the work that I did was setting up service quality function. So that's where, that's a place from where all these concepts, etc. in my life came, as to how with a small team at the corporate office, you needed to run the change a sales organization with a service culture, because it was completely sales driven, and then you were moving it into service, and you were trying to put a lot of things in place, which, along the way I will share. That was the second part. Of ICICI. The third part was I went back and did corporate operations, which was quite close to banking, cash management, etc., accounting, and those kind of things. And my last stint that I did with ICICI Bank was about fraud risk management and reputation management. So basically, it was managing these two risks. So that was the last assignment I did with ICICI Bank. Post that, of course, I've been in touch with the industry, and I've also been internal ombudsman with two organizations, with DBS Bank, and currently I'm with internal ombudsman with Tata Capital. So that's as far as my professional background goes. But all along the way, I just conclude here, my passion has always been the customer, and my passion has always been process. As to what process I can set so that the customer gets what he wants, that's always been at the back of my mind. And that's how I've been so driven to this kind of work. So I'd like to thank, the Bloom team for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to share all that I know. And I'm looking forward to having an engaging session today.
Thank you, Satinder. And somehow or other, since you introduced yourself, our careers also run parallelly. I spent 17 years with Bank of Maharashtra.
Okay.
And after that, I joined HDFC Bank, and the time frame that you mentioned, we were neighbors. I was managing the Tulsiani branch, while I believe you might have been in 𝗕𝗏 House.
𝗕𝗏 House, yes.
So we were neighbors.
We were nearby. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. Welcome to the show. So let's start.
Thank you. Yes.
You have had a remarkable career spanning over 2 decades in banking and consulting. What inspired you to enter this field, and how has your perspective on the industry evolved over the years?
So when you're saying how did I enter this field of banking in a way? Yeah, so see, when I started working, there were just 2 or 3 things that you could do. And to be very honest, I started my banking career in '86. That time, the next thing after graduation was you appear for these PO exams, you get through, you join. So that's what I did, very simply. And I wasn't really so serious about my career, though I was very serious about learning what they teach. So I worked in 2 branches in Punjab National Bank, but that's the foundation, as I say. And today I realize the importance of that foundation, and more so day by day, because I just feel that knowledge is eroding today because of, technology. So that was that part. I joined ICICI Bank primarily because I did not want to get transferred. Now, it sounds a little silly, but that's what it was. My husband was already in a transferable job. I wanted to stay in one place. I actually took a chance. My career spanned very well, and that's how, it happened. But now what shift happened, that's a very critical question that you are asking. So when we did banking, and this has also moved with technology. It has moved with the time, is we did face-to-face banking. That's how it started. And even when we started ICICI, even in ICICI Bank, we were doing face-to-face banking initially. Though we had computerized systems, they were just systems, but we knew the customer by name. We knew how we, and all these very evolved ways of, these KYC documents were not there. You had to go and guess, and then, get the customer, make sure, he's the right guy. Because when you don't have customers, you can't get an introduction to get another customer. So all the learnings, in fact, lots of learnings of, the public sector bank had to be unlearned, and you had to question. So this was one very, interesting part of the setup. So a simple thing, which might now seem like a way of life, we had this fixed deposit chart. Actually, I'm just remembering now. So fixed deposit chart said that, okay, you keep a fixed deposit for 3 years. If you break the fixed deposit before 3 years, there's a penalty. Now, no one had ever questioned in all the 50, 60, 100 years that who put the penalty, why the penalty is there. Is there an RBI circular which, talks about this? So when we were doing these things for ICICI Bank, and when we were setting processes, when we were setting new things, we were questioning all this. So, that was a very interesting part of it. And then also came this thing that, okay, you can do anything that you want to do. And I mean, anything is, of course, what is legal and can be done, provided you have the basis of where it is coming from. And then started, that whole enterprise way of, and a startup always has, that liberty you get, which is different from consolidated companies where you can experiment. And, you can take decisions. They may go right, they may go wrong, but you take decisions, you, bear the impact of those decisions. And there are many such things that one does. So I think that interest continued, the interest of questioning, the interest of, trying out new things. And I think maybe that's what, took the whole thing forward. And that, I think that's, now that I'm talking to you, I think that's the reason.
Wonderful, wonderful. So you talk about this process improvement or operational improvements. In your experience with leading operational improvement programs, can you share a particularly challenging project that you manage, and how did you overcome the hurdles? You mentioned about the fixed deposits thing. Apart from that, anything else that you can share?
See, this is not, it's not directly, but I think the process where it comes. So when we were setting up the contact center, one very plain and simple thing was that, unlike face-to-face, where if you put a person on the fixed deposit seat, then that person knows everything that happens, or you teach the person, okay, this is how things have to happen. If somebody is sitting on the clearing desk, the person understands everything about clearing, he has enough time. But the moment you move to non-face-to-face, so the moment you move to calls, or the moment you move to emails, now you're not seeing the customer. You don't know who he is, okay? And the second thing is that in the early days, though later on we could segregate calls to say that if this customer chooses fixed deposit, it goes to so-and-so people. But operationally managing the show, you cannot have, one person just sitting and waiting for fixed deposit calls to come. You cannot have one person. So there has to be, you have to even look at productivity. You have to look at the cost of, managing the entire center. So then what happens is that you need people who know everything. Now that's another challenge, because you can't dump things into people's heads. You have to have some kind of a process. That's the starting point of the process. That took us a while. And then that's when we came up with that, okay, by then we had, initially when we started, we had a Word document. It wasn't even Word that time. It was some star something. And we used to have an HTML link. So that means when he gets an X question, he goes and clicks that and he gets an answer to that. And that was a starting point of moving from, face-to-face to process. And that's how the process started, because a contact center, and of course branches also, but there you can maneuver. In a contact center, there is less opportunity for maneuvering. It is very straightforward. It has to be done in a particular way. You cannot afford to make mistakes. And you cannot afford to have experienced people because they come at a cost. So you just get graduates, just fresh graduates, and you need to provide them all that is required to be able to deliver the best. And process enters there, because my personal belief, and I very strongly believe, that training is one way of getting the best out of people. I'd rather work on the process. If I set the process right, and I'll give you another example. We used to have, whenever any amount has to be keyed into the system, so you have a maker and you have a checker. Many times we used to realize that the mistake that the maker makes, it passes through the checker. So it's even 5,000 and 5,000. 50,000, if he's keyed in, this guy, the checker also puts in 50,000. Now, why? It is very easy to say, but the person who's maker can make a mistake. The checker is there to catch the maker's mistake. But the checker is checking so much. Actually, the ratio used to be 1 to 4. That is, four makers had one checker. And how will the checker find out? So now how do you put it into a process? Because you can't keep blaming the checker. So we started this process. Now it might look very simple, but at that point of time, we thought it was a great innovation, that even the checker will key in the amount, so that if there's a difference, it will throw up. And that is how, we, put that in place. So I think process is the key or the lifeblood of anything that works on a scale.
Yeah, that's very true. You mentioned about the maker-checker concept, wherein one checker had 4 makers. So and because he or she was overloaded, hasn't that resulted in password sharing?
Not really. That's like if passwords get shared even today, whoever wants to and whoever trusts. So that's a very different area. But there are more checks and balances today. Like you have biometric, and you have many more ways in which you can catch these kind of things. So that gets into the fraud area and fraud risk area, which of course it's possible. But even if a person was genuinely doing it, let's think about it, because you cannot have as many checkers as you have makers. Otherwise, again, you're defeating the purpose. True. It's a triangle eventually, so they keep reducing.
True. That's true. Yeah, you mentioned about fraud prevention.
Yes.
Fraud prevention is a critical aspect of banking. What's the most innovative approach you have seen or used in combating frauds, and how can banks stay ahead of increasingly sophisticated fraudsters?
Innovative method, if you say, the banks, not just banks, any organization which deals with money particularly, has to move as fast as a fraudster does. Okay. So in my opinion, and because I also was in charge of that unit, one of the most important thing is to be able to get the trigger at the right time. That trigger is very important. So just as, you will keep checking, you will keep doing whatever that is there. But if I don't come to know that there is something which is going wrong, so our focus used to be a lot on prevention. Now, over here, there are, 2 aspects. There are some organizations which can really spend a lot, and, they can get the best of technology and, use it. But at the end of the day, it is the people, okay, who are putting the rules in place, who will be able to actually get that right and be able to prevent. So prevention, in my opinion, is a very, very important aspect of, managing fraud risk. Of course, once you know how the frauds are happening, then you'll find ways and means of doing it. The second important thing is customer education. And the customer must know how people get fooled, and that's a continuous thing that has to be done. So you keep telling the customer, don't give OTP, but he still goes even today. In day-to-day, he still goes and gives the OTP, and then that's where it happens. So yeah, there was this first level, second level, third level, all levels you can put in place, but eventually it has to be the, prevention, getting the trigger right. I can give you an example. It was a silly example for which we got a little pulled up also, but I can just tell you. So fraudsters will always be ahead of you.
They will
Okay,
be.
they find such innovative ways of doing frauds. So ATM transactions at that a particular point of time used to be the largest number of transactions that that used to happen. Very difficult to manage data. Whatever technology you use, you're dealing with so much data. How will you figure out what's going wrong? So there was this one person who cracked the code somewhere and kept withdrawing a lower amount. So some 500, 200, I don't remember the amount exactly. Kept doing it for some 2 months and cleansed somebody's account. Now the total was large, but it is very difficult for anybody to find a 200, 500 entry in those, lakhs of entries that happen every day. So, once that happened, first it was like always a give up stage, and, your team will come to you and say, well, what do we do? How can we, ye to bahut chota amount hai, how are we going to catch it? But then, we used our brains. Of course, now it doesn't look like a very big brainy thing, but we said that, okay, let's start also tracking cumulative amount. So cumulative for say 5 days, 10 days or something, and then let's set a trigger, because this trigger setting is very important. Then only you're able to, because I think some smaller amounts, all organizations take the risk, and they know that, the effort put in to control that versus the benefit, everyone takes a call. But, then putting that whole trigger aspect in place. There's another area, which also needed a lot of attention at that point of time, and I think it's even very relevant today, is that today a customer is open to many channels. So it's like that there's a lot of, cross-channel entries. For example, I can maybe use a debit card PIN to enter internet banking. I can use a mobile banking something to, set a password somewhere else. So there's a lot of this crisscross that keeps happening. And when you're actually approving products or approving processes, it becomes a challenge, because every time someone comes with some new novel idea, and there are lots of people with novel ideas, they want to do lots of things for the customers, you are again and again going through the same discussion, 3 hours, 4 hours, and you're trying to this thing. So, we said we must find a solution to this. Every time we can't be discussing this just to give an approval, and you can't delay approvals, because it eventually, you're dealing customer benefit. So we created a grid. And I think that was one big achievement, where we created a grid in such a way that you just had to put it over there to check, okay, mobile banking, say you'll get this you will get, and then you'll be able to allow this to happen. So, that was because you are opening up many channels to customers. It's not just one channel. Customers want, companies want, and the world is changing.
True, very true, very true. You talked about all this, having dealt with regulators and reported to the board committees. What are the key challenges in balancing regulatory compliance with business objectives, and how can organizations navigate these effectively?
My answer, many people won't like, but my answer is that I don't think the regulator thinks differently than what the companies think. But there is a challenge. Now, what the challenge is to interpret what the regulator says, to see how it can be, incorporated in the processes of the company. And if there is an issue, in my experience, one can go back to the regulator and have a discussion. So I have, seen this happening several times, unless there are some very hard ones which you really can't do much about. But if you ask me, I have not found the regulator to be completely at crossroads from what the business wants. Because see, especially finance and especially banking, or wherever money is involved, trust and trust is a very important thing. And one just can't allow things to go in any other direction. So that reputation, trust, all these are really very important. Initially, it really bugs us, because we need to change the process, we need to do so many things. But if you look at it in hindsight, I still don't, I can't point out any single thing which I feel that the regulator asked for, which wasn't in the interest of the bank. But as you, as your question sounded, initially it's it's difficult because you need to change a lot. Sometimes you need to hire people. It's not easy. The difficulty is there.
Yeah, I can also remember what happened when the demonetization happened. RBI came up with a lot of circulars and things to be done, which at the grassroots level, the branches, the interpretation was much, much different. And then we landed up in a mess.
Yeah, but that's an exception. I think the less discussed, normally, the regulator gives time. Yeah, it doesn't happen like, the way demonetization happened. It gives you time, you get time, and you also see the prep work, you see the discussions are happening. You know that something like this is going to come. So, yeah, it gives you time. So I'm not completely on that side. But yes, in hindsight, I don't think, and I'm sure you'll agree, that there was any decision which was like completely, which stopped everything,
I agree with that. And now
this is not a diplomatic answer. I'm very sorry. I run the risk of just speaking my mind.
And we appreciate that.
I'm sorry.
You were the founding member of Gender Neutral Workplace Committee at ICICI, I believe.
Yes.
What were some of the most impactful changes you witnessed or helped implement in creating a more inclusive workplace?
So two parts to this. I'll just clarify this piece, So I'm not a part of HR because HR does policies and that's what they do. And ICICI was an organization where gender neutrality was fairly good. It never struck us that you are a woman and you can't do this and things like that. If somebody chose not to do it, was a different thing, but that was never how it was decided. The member when I we were actually, this was for gender harassment, and it was much before it became mandatory for all companies to, have such a process in place. So what, as a part of this, one was educating people on, what this really means. Because, people sometimes, of course, there are some things which happen intentionally, but there are certain things which people don't know. They don't know about it, and they should know. And it's not just women, even men should know. So, the whole idea of that was to, educate people, or at least make them aware of what all this means, what behavioral, how they need to behave in certain ways. And of course, we used to have inquiries and, then take the decisions whichever way it was. But it was started much before. There was a mechanism by which people could, reach out. And those kind of things were very important because this gave that a safe environment for people to actually, put in their complaints if they had any.
Thanks for sharing that. My last question to you before I hand it over to Deepak. You have participated in several international conferences. How do you think global perspective on banking and customer service differ from regional ones? And what is it that we can learn from them?
Yeah, this is so banking per se remains the same, because it's what you do here is what you do there. Culturally, there are differences. So when we say culturally differences, see, I can just give you one, example of the way, say, any service would happen, say, in London versus, say, Bombay. Now, over here, what would happen is we think, and also we have created that kind of an environment where customer is always in a hurry, He's coming over there, he wants to, do everything quickly, whatever work he has, you have to attend to him so fast. And so speed is very, of essence as we see things over here. We are okay. I'm not saying that we are that okay, but, we give importance to quantity over quality is my personal take on this. Whereas when we see even just a checkout counter at any particular store, forget banking, people are waiting in queue, and the person who's handling that person, okay, takes time. He finishes everything that has to be done with that particular customer before he moves to the next queue. So that process orientation, as far as they are concerned, they will follow the process and make sure that all the T's. Whereas over here, we try to, go out of the way and, try to put things together. But this is like at a very, what do you call it? This is at a very superficial level that I'm talking about, But clearly process that's one very clear difference. Process orientation and adherence to for quality, I think, is much higher over there. I feel the speed is very, very slow, which goes beyond our patience, that we have. So that's as far as the West is concerned. I haven't been to the US, so I can't talk about it. But on this side, that's, if you talk about Australia, and they have established processes much in advance, much before, we have taken on, those kind of processes like your, the bankers' code of conduct and things like that. We had actually taken a lot of inputs from everybody to make ours. So, we were a little behind in those things as far as putting policies and, those kind of things in place. But yeah, speed-wise, no one can beat what we do here. Our people are also impatient, as well as our, delivery is also much faster.
Yeah, I'll share one personal experience about the same thing that you mentioned, the speed at which we work. I was in Zurich about some years ago, just stepped into a bank, and it was outside the teller counter. So there was one customer being handled by the teller, and the next person was standing at least 10 to 15 feet away. And I was quite amazed. And here, when you go to any branch bank, you will find one person standing on the teller counter, and there's the next person looking over his shoulder. Yeah. And there'll be 3 or 4 other people standing in the queue. So that's the way we work in banking.
Yes, but then we have also are more populated, So I think that's got a bit to do with.
Was there bird flu at that time in Zurich, Premraj?
No, there was nothing. No bird flu, no
there would have been social distancing,
Okay, Deepak, take over, please.
Wonderful. I'll just take on from where Satinder answered your last question and, speed of execution and take time. And she gave us that example of the supermarket checkout person, who does everything, who scans the goods for you, makes a bill, counts the notes you give him or her, or, takes out that machine for the card payment. Only when everything is complete, the next customer is entertained. Now, because she comes from Punjab National Bank and she understands where I'm coming from, both of us have gray hair. I'm taking you 30 years back, in those times before ICICI and HDFC came, there wasn't a concept of a single window counter. Passbook printing was done somewhere else. Passbook updating was done somewhere else. Cash withdrawal had a separate counter. Cash deposit had a separate counter. Account opening used to happen with a separate person. Now there is this pretty young girl, probably 23, 24-year-olds, sitting at the counter. She knows almost nothing. You went through 52 weeks of training, compliance, legal, this, that, everything was taught to you. That one person at the counter knew everything. Now that one person at the counter knows almost nothing, but they are still trying and, trying to service the customer. Things have changed. Tell us, were things better previously or now? And I'm not talking about computerization or technology, just that customer experience.
See, currently, I'll tell you how it works. See, things have changed for the better. Okay, and I'll tell you the reason why. One reason why things have changed for the better is because there is increased accountability. Now, this increased accountability comes because we are able to measure many things. Otherwise, even if you talk about then and now, and I'm not saying uniform, see, there'll always be 80% we believe is how it works. So even if we, RBI forced the banks to put over there 7 minutes, you'll get a draft. You may not get it in 7 minutes. We don't know. Because I remember people used to come in the morning, give a bunch of slips for drafts, and then come in the afternoon and collect the drafts. Yeah. I don't think they were ever given in 7 minutes. But at the same time, if someone came in a hurry, you knew the customer, you knew he's really in a hurry, you could give it even in a minute.
Yeah.
So that personalization kind of stuff was there, like the local banya thing. He knows what you want. You don't have to tell him. You just have to make a call. what has happened now is, one is the scale has increased, because see, if you take the bank, if people, a population of people who used the banking facility compared to what people are using now, the number of transactions people are doing now, even us, if you take, we used to earlier withdraw money from the ATM, use it for 15 days, 20 days, and then go and withdraw money again. Or even if you took cash across the counter. But what is happening now is that definitely from that point of view, there is standardization, because you can't be doing things differently. Second is you can measure. Now, whether you perform as well or not is a different matter. So I think we really can't compare, because, I like, this is my favorite topic, and I'll just come to a little bit of what I love saying, as humans, we have not changed. For thousands of years, we are the same people, right? So we have emotions, we like to connect, we have this, we are social beings eventually, we like to do those kind of things, so that human nature remains the same. And there are three, times in anybody's, broadly, when we need a human, okay? So one of them is when you want to buy something new. So imagine buying a car, buying whatever you need, you always want to go with somebody. Second is when you have some problem. So either you're stuck on the road or your transaction has we need somebody. And the third thing is when you want to close a relationship. We think it's a big thing to close a relationship. And so human beings have been this way. And that will continue to be. Only thing is that technology has moved in to cater to scale and error-free transactions. But if you notice, most of what happens is that 90% of transactions everywhere go through very smoothly. It is the 10 which don't go through smoothly that people have a tough time if the company is not dealing with it well. Yeah. And I think that's where the difference, there's a stark difference there.
Thank you for sharing that. And, all of us have our experiences. And since we are talking about service and we are talking about banking, let me share what happens with a customer, how frustrated a customer gets, and at what level one person needs to go, to get the problem resolved. And as you said, if I want to close a relationship, you need a person or what. So this is a personal example. And, it is Premraj's ex-employer, So my dad passed away and we had 2 DMATs account with HDFC Bank. And we know that when somebody passes away, the account needs to close. A new account needs to be opened for the transfer. Walked into the bank and told them, close this and open a new account. PAN card, Aadhaar card now. मैं नहीं देगा, उसके बगैर नहीं खुलेगा. अरे क्यों नहीं खुलेगा? My savings bank account is there with you. My credit card is with you. I'm KYC compliant. You are closing an account which is KYC compliant and opening another account in its place. No, sir, we will not open without PAN card, Aadhaar card. That too original. ठीक है? Went to the branch manager. He says, no, sir, you have to apply. इसके बगैर नहीं होगा. Well, you do not know me. If I complain on social media, your job will be at threat. And in the evening, you will call me saying, हम आपका account खोलने के लिए तैयार हैं. Refuse to listen. जो करने का है जाओ करो. ठीक है? Okay, went on Twitter, complained to HDFC about KYC tag Nirmala Sitharaman and Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. 4 o'clock they called saying, sir, we are ready to open your account. If you are ready to open your account, why are you making a customer who is there with you for the last 24 years go through all this BS? At what point will the customer be treated like God? Because if it was possible, then it could have been done in the morning itself. So, your views.
So I'll give a process answer, okay? Because I obviously cannot answer for anybody or any bank or something like that. And these instances do happen, okay? Yeah. So, there is this, one is leadership intent. See, it sounds very easy. They're not just words, okay? So it depends upon what is the communication which has gone down to the last person. So first of all, whether there is an intent which has been communicated, and second, whether that intent has gone to the last person on the line, that's one. But the easiest way of doing this is to check, we've done it many times and you can keep doing it, everything is continuous. It is that no, authority to say no should be with the next level. It's a very simple formula. And the next level will think before he says no, because you presume that person is, and that's the method to manage this. That's what I think. People may follow or not follow, lots of stuff happens. But the point is that you at the first level cannot say a no. The authority to say no rests with somebody else. And then that's a way to tackle this. But of course, why they do it, we know it's not justified though. You know, everyone wants to do that tick box thing, and you know, maybe someone has said, oh, this audit person will check it out, and sometimes things go wrong, so people are on the cautious side. But yes, definitely it's a it's a problem for customers. But this authority to say no is where you can rest this, and that's less. The no's are less than the yeses.
Yes. The only thing is, you know, when they were doing it in the evening, when I went to them, he said, sir, हमारा back office ये सब नहीं समझ रहा है, तो आपने complain किया है, इसीलिए मैं करवा के दे रहा हूँ. Otherwise, there is no system to internally capture all the details.
So there are these problems. So, you know, what happens is that we have this tendency of, saying that 90% of my something is right or 99% is right. But actual focus, has to be on the 99%, no doubt, but it has to be on that 1% which is not happening. And that's where, you know, when you really want to make a difference, that 1% is where you're going to actually check. So when you're checking also, when we do root cause analysis, for example, you can always do very good root cause analysis, give a big number of 100, but what you really need to do is, and someone like me would ask that you take 5 cases which took the longest time to resolve, and let's do a root cause analysis of that. And then you find different reasons. And of course, we move to metrics, which is another game.
You know, Brigadier Bhasin has raised his hand, and let me ask him to unmute himself and say or ask what he wants to say.
You know, Deepak, I'm sorry to intervene. You not open it for audience, but I have a question related to the next level. What you're saying is that next level is okay. So I'll just give you an example. I had just moved into Mumbai. I had an account in HDFC Bank, and there was a reason where I needed to withdraw some money immediately, but my checkbook was not at home, or something. Something was not at home. It was in the camp, which is 120 kilometers away. So I went to the bank, and I didn't even go to the lower person. I straight away went into the manager's cabin, and I said, this is my problem. Can you please resolve it? Okay. And I said, people have given me money even by issuing a leave if my checkbook is not there. So can you do something? She said, it's impossible. So I said, ma'am, I do some customer service training also in the corporate. And I normally believe that in the service industry, don't use this word impossible, because impossible does become possible most of the times. Okay. She said, I'm so sorry. I understand what you say, but this can't be done. So I said, you sure it can't be done? She said, no. So I came out. I was just walking out of the door, quite frustrated, when I just thought I'll take a chance with the counter girl. I went to the counter and I asked this girl without mentioning anything about what had happened with the money. And she did it. When she did it, I wanted to go back to the branch manager and say that if there was no process, this girl couldn't have done it. How has it happened now? But if I did that, that girl would have been in trouble, so I didn't do it. But the question remains that sometimes it is just the attitude. The processes are there. There are ways of doing it. But the person whom you are dealing with, his or her attitude becomes the primary thing. Thank you.
Yes. You know, Premraj, you don't need to raise your hand.
just to interrupt, because HDFC Bank bashing is happening. So I thought just intervene with what Brigadier said. Brigadier, there are rules and regulations, like you rightly mentioned, and the branch manager has got an authority wherein up to a certain level he can authorize without a checkbook on a plain withdrawal slip. But unfortunately, the person that you met did not want to exercise that authority. So that's what has happened.
So
and let me apologize on behalf
of my point was
HDFC.
attitude. If she wanted to help, because if the help was really impossible, the word that she used, then the girl on the counter could have also not done it.
Apologies on behalf of HDFC Bank.
Attitude is of course, I mean, it's like a kind of given. I mean, how could you really do service if you really don't want to help somebody? I mean, that's a very key thing. But
Yeah.
as management, or as what you see, like when we talk about service operational excellence, basically it is about how you will put things in place so that the best delivery can be done.
Yeah.
Okay, just if I can again give you an example, but this time not of HDFC, because I don't want to corner Premraj. Let me corner Satinder now.
Yeah.
I had gone to Thailand, and in a metro, my pocket got picked. I didn't realize it till I came down from the metro station and was walking to the hotel. I found that my wallet is missing. Now, at that point of time, I went to my mobile. I tried to do something because you're in a foreign country, your SMS is not working and all that. So I had to rush to the hotel to get the Wi-Fi connection, and I called up. First, I called Axis Bank to say that my credit card my wallet has been stolen. There was a credit card in it. So he said, sir, I'm sorry, there's already been a transaction of 50,000 rupees in that. And it's already got cleared. I said, but the card is he didn't know the PIN. How could he do it?
Yeah.
So he said, no, sir, he must have known your PIN. I said, no, there's no way he could have known my PIN because the person who has done it didn't see me and I didn't tell him. And so a lot of argument happened. In the meantime, I said, hold on. I went to ICICI Bank because there were 2 credit cards in that. So ICICI Bank also said that an amount had already been withdrawn and there's another amount being withdrawn. I said, block it.
Wow.
So that one amount got blocked, but another 60,000 rupees went out in ICICI Bank also. For 3 years, I fought both with Axis Bank and with ICICI Bank, and I could not get my money back.
Yeah.
With no amount of logic, the way it happened, I said, it's impossible for anyone to know my PIN. And both the banks said that there is a PIN. If that PIN was not known, the money couldn't have been withdrawn. I said the PIN was not known and the money has been withdrawn.
Yeah.
So I still have 1,10,000 rupees lost, and that's...
Luckily, Brigadier sir, you could afford it. A lot of people probably cannot.
No, it's not a question of afford. What could you do? You could... Yeah. I mean, I did everything possible. I think I did Twitter also. I did everything possible.
Yeah.
My children are very good in all this. So they went to Twitter. I went to Twitter.
Yeah.
Everyone failed when the bank said, no, it's not possible.
Normally, there is a dispute process. I mean, anyway, this particular thing, I don't know. I mean, now, because but there's a dispute process. And but if someone could get the PIN, and if it's a PIN, that's a little strange.
Strange. Yeah. It
So
could have been so many things. Yes, Abhijit, go ahead.
This is something not unusual, and this is what we do in risk management. This is a risk that your card can be stolen.
Yeah.
That is why you have a card insurance.
Yes.
There for a nominal fee.
Yeah.
So if you take that, and if there is a credit card loss, then your loss is restricted to an X amount, and over that amount, the insurance company pays.
Yes.
So this is what I think, knowing this, because see, without the PIN, it can't be done. Now, how did he know the PIN?
Yeah.
So that's why there's a host of requirement that your PIN should be so complex that nobody can do it. Ideally, your the date of birth, year of birth, or the date of your birth and the month. So if it's so easy as a PIN, they would have various ways to lock it.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm surprised that the PA could be lost in Thailand, and within half an hour, a Thailand pickpocket would be smart enough to decode a PIN and make a transaction. So
there is only one word explanation for this, Abhijit. Gang hai. Ek aadmi ka kaam nahi hai.
It should go in please believe it or not. This can happen.
Abhijit, I raised the same question when they asked me. They said your PIN should... I said, firstly, let me tell you that my PIN, even I don't remember easily. It is so complex. Okay, that is number one. Number two, it is nothing to do with anything that related to me, my phone number, my car number, nothing like that.
Yeah.
My question is, even if it was, let's say it was my car number, for example, a person sitting in Thailand in less than 30 minutes, less than 30, I think about 20 minutes, my money was gone. How would somebody crack it in 20 minutes?
There
And
are
then two
softwares.
people,
There are
listen, I have
softwares
two
to do
cards.
that, Brigadier Sir. Yeah, there are softwares to crack these codes.
Listen, two cards.
Yeah.
And two cards having two different pins.
Yeah. Yeah.
And two banks saying the same thing.
Fraudsters are miles ahead of us. If we think we are just one step behind them, no, they are miles ahead of us. And let me bring Satinder now for, she does the job of being an internal ombudsman for Tata Capital as well. At some level, when all these things do not get, solved at the branch level, then at the regional level, and then, at the top level where you are doing complaints, it finally comes to the ombudsman. At an ombudsman, how do you look at the big picture? How do you decide it's a bank's fault, it's the customer's fault, it is nobody's fault, but because the bank is so big, they need to compensate the customer because they are so small? And please share with us some typical instances you may have come about,
So all three, the answers are whether whose fault it is or not fault. So see, there is, because, it's not one-off case that comes because, you're dealing with a company which is large in size. And it's not just, what example I'll give is not related to Tata Capital, but in general, as an internal ombudsman, there are 2 or 3 principles that I follow, okay, to take a decision, because it has to be based on something or the other. The first thing is that, did the customer know? Okay. Was it ever informed to the customer? So I'll give an example of this. So if you're talking about foreclosure charges, or if you're talking about any kind of charges, if the charge or, something which is like, written on page 10 of the agreement, okay, and I expect the customer to know that page 10 pe ye hai, out of a 20-page agreement, then definitely there is a problem. Okay. So that's the, that is one of the ways. So one thing is to know, did the customer know? Did he know the process? Did he know what he was doing? That is one part of it. The second way to look at it, the second thing that I look at it is that, does the company, whichever company, do they have a process for handling this? For example, sometimes it happens that they themselves don't have a process. If they don't have a process, then the question of following a process doesn't arise. If there was a process and somebody did not follow it, then there is an issue. So it's as simple as that. So maybe because Tata Capital, because, or any other NBFC, because they're a lending company, it's only half the size of the problem. In a bank, it is both sides. You're handling liabilities and assets both. On the liability side, there is more of, there are more gray areas. In lending, it is more straight, because either you have informed or you have not informed. I'll give you one, just kind of an example. It's not it's a real situation. So it's like if someone is asking for foreclosure. Okay. And any employee has given an amount of foreclosure. He gave an amount, the customer paid. Now the customer starts chasing, okay, now you give me a no due certificate. Because I paid the amount. The company says that the person has to pay foreclosure charges. So now see, here comes a decision-making dilemma. Because when the customer asked for foreclosure, the amount should have been given, foreclosure plus charges, total
all together.
All together. Then you ask them to resolve. So my approach is always to, resolve the matter, because if you decide in either way, it's sometimes not proper. Sometimes even the customers trying to find out ways of, figuring out. But then while you're taking decisions, you're also making sure that this doesn't happen again. For it to not happen again, then you give them a list of what they should change. And, get them to change that. So if it comes then for the 6th time, the same problem, after you having asked them to change, then yes, you'll take a strong decision to say, now you pay. So, it's like it's an daily thing.
I was about to ask you a question that, how would a ombudsman within the bank space and how would an ombudsman within the NBFC space be different? But I think you qualified, there could be
Yeah,
more
it's
to
not
that.
only the kind of complaints that come to you are different.
Yeah.
And the liability complaints, that is, the account related complaints, they are more, they're not so straightforward. There's a
Yeah.
little bit more of communication and interaction that happens. But yeah, I think you adding value to what you're doing, I think, is the crux.
Yes.
Whether you have communicated enough, and if you have some kind of experience, then you share that experience. Say, for example, a certain kind of frauds are now taking place in the, on the NBFC side, where, people pose as the company and they get the customer to repay the loan and things like that, and the value, the amounts can sometimes be large. Now it is purely the customer's fault because he's just not, just gone and given away the money. But then because it's a reputation issue, then you have the company should take measures to re-educate the customer.
Yes.
So for that, now one option that you have is that you go and educate everybody, which is, it's a large exercise.
Yeah.
The second is that you do it in a focused way, that who are your vulnerable customers,
Your customer.
and how you approach them. Today, the companies have enough technology to be able to identify vulnerable people. So when we talk about AI and when we talk about all this data analytics and things like that, that should be used for this. So you identify the vulnerable segment and then you directly approach them. So it's a targeted, education, and then that helps rather than a, general few million customers kind of.
Yeah, otherwise, especially in the ombudsman space, where I come from, the insurance space, or, you normally get the feeling that if it's that policy holder, when the complaint reaches up to the ombudsman level, at some point, the feeling is that the company is not interested. They don't want to listen to a small policy, small customer. And invariably, 99% of at least insurance ombudsman, awards are in favor of the complainant, the policy holder. Very rarely, unless there is a technicality where, a claim cannot be paid, you get the feeling that, since the company is so big and they can afford it, 2-3 lakh रुपया है, जाने दो कंपनी के ऊपर डाल देते हैं या फाइन दे देते हैं, or you put some interest and costs on them and everybody is happy. Does it work like that way in your side also? I mean, banking or BFSI?
No, it doesn't work because, see, there is a difference now. Internal ombudsman is different from a ombudsman.
External.
That is a starting point. Now, internal ombudsman is where when the company says no to a customer, they have to refer the complaint to the internal ombudsman. The internal ombudsman makes sure that the decision is right. But the internal ombudsman can give a judgment to say that, okay, you pay or you don't pay, and that's how, and there's a process around that. Many times after the internal ombudsman decision is done, the customer may not even go to the ombudsman. Possibility. Of course, insurance space, I've handled some. So there's a difference basically, I mean, in that sense. What you're saying is it happens sometimes that, yes, they think that the company can pay, so pay. And it's always, there's a soft corner for the customer because it's an individual versus an organization. It's very difficult. We always say that because our job is to protect the customer because he's an individual. And it's fighting an organization. So it's, like a very, it's not a level playing field.
David versus Goliath.
Yes, that kind of thing.
Premraj asked you a similar question, but I would really like to ask you again, and know your thing. As customers, and it is not about Indian customers versus Western customers, are we too demanding of the organizations we deal with just because we are giving them money or just because we are trusting them? Are we expecting too much?
Asking me? Should I answer?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, in fact, one of the very important things of excellence when we talk about quality, is expectation management. Okay. So it's like a simple example. Today we expect things not just with the company we are dealing with, but with in comparison to other companies. So when I'm talking about delivery, I'm not talking about just banking delivery. I'm talking about what Amazon does, what
Yes.
X does, Y does, why,
Yes.
whether I can get food, quick service,
Yes.
all that stuff, right? So the distinction between industries has blurred.
Yeah.
So today as a customer, there are a few things which have changed. One is that we are more aware through social media, rightly or wrongly.
Yes.
So we have got exposed to more brands.
Yeah.
And we want to experiment. Now, that's a
Yes.
big change. That's a shift that has happened as far as customers are concerned.
Yes.
However,
Yeah.
see, all companies cannot provide things in the same way. So I'll give you an example, which is, there is one sari seller. So I'll talk about saris. I'm, very passionate about handloom and textiles, and also that's one area I love. So there is a individual seller, okay, who is selling saris. There is Amazon also who sells, okay. When I place an order to Amazon, I expect it to come, if I'm a Prime, member, then I expect it will come in 24 hours, 48 hours or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, the same thing, when I am asking this person to give, I have to wait, I know. So normally, her things come in 7 days.
Yeah.
Normal process.
Yes.
But recently I placed an order, and with that order came a message. What was that message? That message said that we will deliver to you in 20 days because this was an outstation live. That means this lady had gone to some weaver. She did the live from there. The process is going to take 20 days. Now, if I know that, I'm not going to be asking her after 7 days.
Yes.
So one very key thing that all companies need to do is expectation management. This communication has to be right as far as expectation is concerned. And once that is known and the customers consciously, this rate of interest thing is something like that, If you know somebody is giving you at 7%, someone is giving at 10, you're consciously going for 10, then you can't complain that someone is giving 7. So, yes, expectations have increased, but clear communication is the remedy for that.
I just want to come back to what Premraj was saying, when he said, because you all are bashing HDFC Bank, let me give clarity. When you are the largest private sector bank, you will have the largest number of complaints. Just because SBI is the largest public sector bank, they get the largest number of complaints. That's the way it is.
Getting complaints is, it will happen.
Yeah.
But whether you are able, whether as a company, you have a process to eliminate them and to reduce them, that is the key thing. If you're still not doing it and living with it, then there's a problem. But if you have a process to set that right, it's a cycle. And of course, one odd customer like Brigadier will, have a bad experience.
Just to add on that, 25 to 30% of the complaints which are there are not complaints. They are in the nature of queries. A customer is not aware of how to use technology and he ends up messing up and he gets frustrated, and that frustration is resulting into a complaint. It's not complaint as such. So one needs to distinguish, because in a lot of times as auditors, we have found something which has been recorded as complaints are really not complaints. They're queries, but they are the result of poor customer awareness of how to use technology, or maybe some service breakdown, or the system being down at a point of time, or something of that sort.
Yeah. So there is one particular thing, which I believe in, of course, and I keep talking about it, is defining it right. So the starting point, one, as I said, was intent. The leadership gives what is their intent, as far as customers are concerned. So, and the second thing is defining what is what. So what really, so, I know of a bank, won't mention the name, where for them, resolution is very important. So when we say resolution, in one place, it is that after I send you something, I am resolved. My job is done. But in this particular place, it is that the customer has to say, yeah, okay, now you go ahead. That's how they have defined it. So it's got to do with definition. So like Abhijit was saying, at a point of time, we had also defined that if a customer is coming to you for the second time for the same problem, it's a complaint, whatever it might be. Even if it's a request. So it's like how finely they define it. And of course, then there is this little regulator piece on, the definition on what you should consider a complaint.
Yeah. So, it's way past 1:30. It's 1:34. We have been talking, of course, if I open up to the crowd, and I'm sure there are another 10 people there, all 10 of them will have at least 10 complaints each about their banking experience with one or another bank. So that will take us to 2 o'clock. But before we officially close, let me bring in Harish Mehta, sir, because he was one of the youngest branch managers of a bank during his days. A little bit about banking and service in your area, Harishji, in your era.
I was a banker from 78 to 98. And today, it's a different sort of banking. In my days, people used to come, sit with the branch manager, enjoy a cup of tea, coffee, and invest 20, 30 minutes and be with him.
Yeah.
And I have had the privilege of doing Sunday banking for 6 years. So I created the Connect there. I was the first to set it up in Malad way back in 83. So those 6 years of mine were only about creating relationships and building customers who would speak about us within their buildings. That was a different approach and a different attitude.
Yes.
And I am not aware what is prevalent today, because today it is digital banking. Today it is different. And people don't go to the bank. Only people who are 60 plus, they go and invest their half an hour, 1 hour to go there, come. That's an event for them.
Yes.
So it's a different approach and a different attitude.
Yes.
I do not know, but service levels are still good, because with me being a senior citizen, both ICICI and HDFC treat me well, starting from the guard to the person who is attending to me, and had never had this thing to meet the branch manager, because those relationship guys are good enough to respect and give me the service that I need. But as I see, there has to be protection of system, and because of the frauds which are happening, I do not do any ATM transactions. I've never done it, being a banker for so long. I send my driver or my boy to go and withdraw the cash, that too once in a month. And rest, I do my personal internet banking for payments to directly. So I feel I'm happy the way it is. And things can become better. I do not want to dwell on the risk part. The risk managers are there, and those frauds are happening despite all this. And there are people within the banking system who are involved. I must confess that.
Yes.
Having been through a CBI inquiry where my predecessor committed suicide, I know insiders are only involved, and only then these things happen. Now, at what level, I don't want to comment, but that's a different era. That I was out in 1998, and now it is 26 years that I have been out of the banking system. But still, I get the respect from the banks where I go.
Yes.
So I'm happy the way it is. And Satinder, of course, has left the bank a couple of years back, so she can tell you the latest story.
Yes.
And of course, Premraj also had just a couple of years back. But things are different. During my days, it was personal banking, personal visit, and handshake and coffee, tea, and meeting people on the road and having a cup of tea or talking about it. That are different customer service and customer banking.
Yes. Thank you, Harishji, for sharing that perspective. Let me first hand it over to Payal to say a few words, and then back to Premraj for the official closing.
Namaste, everyone. Thank you, Satinder, for an eye-opener session. I would like to thank Jaspreet for introducing such a prominent personality on Bloom.
Thank you.
Thank you to you for removing time and being with us for past more than 1 hour. Over to you, Premraj sir.
Thank you, Payal. Once again, Satinder, thank you for sharing your wide experience in banking and allied fields. It has enriched our knowledge about the system and processes in the banking industry. It was a pleasure having you on our talk shows. Thank you once again.
Thank you everyone.
Thank
See
you.
next
Thank
week.
you very much. It was a pleasure, and I'm always happy to share what I know. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
you.
Bye.